I never thought I'd be writing this post, but after what happened at my cousin's wedding last weekend, I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some perspective from internet strangers who don't have a horse in this race. My name's irrelevant, but for the sake of this story, let's say I'm Mike. I'm 32 years old, and I own a commercial HVAC business in Phoenix, Arizona that did $7 million in revenue last year. I employ 23 people, I own my home outright, I drive a truck that I actually like rather than one I bought to impress anyone, and I'm genuinely happy with my life. But 10 years ago, my family made it very clear that I was the family disappointment, the black sheep, the one who threw his life away. This is that story, and how it all came full circle in the most unexpected way. Let me take you back to 2015. I was 22 years old, fresh out of high school where I'd been a solid B student, nothing spectacular but not failing either. I came from what I'd call an upper-middle-class family in Scottsdale. My dad was a corporate lawyer, my mom was a hospital administrator, my older brother Jason was in his second year of medical school, and my younger sister Emma was being groomed for law school from the age of 15. We weren't wealthy by Scottsdale standards, but we were comfortable. Very comfortable. The expectation in my family was simple and non-negotiable: you go to a 4-year university, you get a professional degree, you work in an office, and you join the country club. That was the path. That was the only path, according to my parents. Any deviation from this was seen as failure. But here's the thing, I hated school. Not because I was stupid or lazy, but because sitting in a classroom listening to lectures made me want to claw my eyes out. I was a hands-on learner. I liked building things, fixing things, understanding how systems worked. When I was 16, our AC broke during a Phoenix summer, which, if you've never experienced it, is basically like living on the surface of the sun. I watched the HVAC tech who came to fix it, asked him questions, and was genuinely fascinated by the work. He made it look like a puzzle that needed solving, and I loved puzzles. During my senior year, I started researching trade schools. I looked into HVAC certification programs, electrical work, plumbing. I discovered that these skilled trades were not only in high demand but could be incredibly lucrative. I found out that a good HVAC tech in Phoenix could make $70,000 to $90,000 a year, and if you started your own business, the sky was the limit. Phoenix is hot. AC is not optional. It's a recession-proof skill in a city that desperately needs it. I was excited. For the first time in my academic life, I was genuinely excited about my future. I imagined myself running my own business, being my own boss, working with my hands, and making good money doing something I actually enjoyed. So I sat my parents down in the spring of my senior year and told them my plan. I'd been accepted to Arizona State University as a backup, but I wanted to attend the refrigeration school in Phoenix instead. It was an 8-month program, and I could be certified and working within a year. The reaction was, not good. My dad's face went red. Not just pink, but actually red. He stood up from the dinner table so fast his chair fell backward. Trade school, he said, and the way he said it? You'd think I'd said I wanted to join a cult. You want to be a glorified janitor? A handyman? After everything we've given you. My mom started crying. Actual tears. Where did we go wrong? She kept asking. What did we do to make you hate yourself so much that you'd throw away your potential? I tried to explain. I showed them the statistics, the earning potential, the job security. I explained that I'd be debt-free while my peers were drowning in student loans. I told them about my passion for the work. My dad cut me off. Passion, he scoffed. You know what passion gets you? A sore back and calloused hands. You think you're going to support a family fixing air conditioners? You think any respectable woman is going to want to marry a tradesman? My brother Jason, home from medical school for the weekend, chimed in. Mike, come on, man. Be realistic. You really want to be the guy who shows up to fix toilets? You want to wear a uniform with your name on it? Think about Thanksgiving dinners, think about family gatherings. What are you going to say when people ask what you do? Even my little sister Emma, who was 17 at the time, looked at me with what I can only describe as pity. You're smarter than this, she said quietly. But I wasn't backing down. I'd already made up my mind. I told them I was enrolling in the refrigeration school with or without their support. That's when my dad gave me an ultimatum. If you do this, you're on your own. Completely on your own. We will not support this decision financially or emotionally. You will not be welcome at family functions until you come to your senses. You want to make adult decisions. Face adult consequences. I thought he was bluffing. I really did. But he wasn't. I enrolled in the refrigeration school in June 2015. I moved out of my parents' house and into a crappy studio apartment in Tempe with 2 roommates. I worked full-time at a Home Depot to pay for tuition and living expenses. My parents blocked my number. They didn't invite me to Thanksgiving that year. When Christmas came around, I drove by our house and saw everyone's cars there except mine. My brother texted me once, "Just apologize and go to ASU." This is stupid. But I kept going. The program was 8 months of intensive training. I learned everything: electrical systems, refrigerant handling, ductwork, thermodynamics, customer service, business management. I was good at it. Really good. I graduated top of my class in February 2016. I got hired immediately by a mid-sized HVAC company in Phoenix. Starting pay was $42,000 a year, which wasn't bad for a 22-year-old with no debt. I worked my tail off. I took every shift I could, learned from the senior techs, studied for additional certifications at night. Within a year, I was making $58,000. Within 2 years, $75,000. During this time, my family remained distant. I'd occasionally get a text from my sister, usually something like "everyone's asking about you" or "Mom cries about you sometimes." But never an apology. Never an admission that maybe, just maybe, they'd been wrong. When I was 25, in 2018, I made a decision that would change everything. I started my own company, Desert Air Solutions. I'd saved up about $30,000, and I took out a small business loan for another $50,000. I bought a used van, tools, inventory, and ran my business out of my apartment. The first year was brutal. I worked 16-hour days. I was the owner, the technician, the customer service rep, the bookkeeper, and the janitor. I answered calls at 2 in the morning because someone's AC died in July and they had a newborn baby. I built a reputation for being reliable, honest, and skilled. I never sold services people didn't need. I explained everything in plain English. I showed up when I said I would. Word spread. Reviews piled up. I hired my first employee in year 2. Then 2 more. Then 5. By 2020, despite the pandemic, I had 8 employees and we were doing consistent business because AC repair is essential. By 2022, I had 15 employees, 3 service vans, and we'd expanded into commercial work, which is where the real money is. Last year, 2024, we did $7 million in revenue. My personal take-home was just over $1 million. I own my house in Tempe, a nice place with a pool, nothing ostentatious but comfortable. I own my vehicles. I have no debt. I have investments, savings, a retirement account that's actually funded. And through all of this, from 2015 to 2023, I had virtually no contact with my family. My sister would text me on my birthday. Once, my mom sent me a Facebook friend request that I ignored. But mostly, I was dead to them. And honestly, I was okay with that. I built my own life, found my own people, created my own family through close friendships and my work community. Then, about a year ago, things started to change. My sister Emma reached out more frequently. She'd graduated from law school but hadn't passed the bar on her first attempt. She was working as a paralegal and living with our parents, and she seemed different. Less judgmental. More curious about my life. We started getting coffee once a month. She apologized, genuinely apologized, for how she'd treated me. She said she'd been brainwashed by our parents' expectations and that watching me succeed on my own terms had made her question everything she'd been taught. Then my brother Jason called me out of the blue last spring. He'd finished his residency and was working as a pediatrician, making good money but drowning in nearly $400,000 of student loan debt. He was getting married and wanted to invite me to the wedding. He also apologized, though it felt more surface level than Emma's apology. He said something like, "We were all young and stupid, water under the bridge, right?" I went to his wedding. It was awkward. My parents were civil but cold. My dad shook my hand like he was handling something distasteful. My mom hugged me, but it felt performative, for the benefit of the other guests. But I went because Jason had extended an olive branch, and I figured I could be the bigger person. During the reception, several family members I hadn't seen in years approached me. They'd heard I had my own business. They asked questions. How many employees? What's the revenue? Do you need good people? My uncle Frank, who'd called me a quitter back in 2015, asked if I was hiring. He'd been laid off from his sales job. I politely told him I'd keep him in mind, knowing I absolutely would not. Then came my cousin Sarah's wedding 3 weeks ago, and this is where everything came to a head. Sarah is my Aunt Linda's daughter, and we'd been close growing up. She'd also been one of the family members who'd cut me off when I went to trade school, so when I got the wedding invitation, I almost didn't go. But Emma convinced me. She said Sarah had asked about me specifically and wanted me there. The wedding was at a resort in Scottsdale, very fancy, probably a $200,000 affair. I wore a nice suit, drove myself, and prepared for an evening of awkward small talk. The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was elegant. And then came the moment that inspired this entire post. During cocktail hour, I was standing by the bar when my dad approached me. We'd barely spoken at Jason's wedding, and I expected more of the same polite distance. Instead, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Mike, can we talk?" We walked to a quieter corner of the patio. My mom joined us. And my dad said, "Son, I think it's time we put the past behind us. You've done well for yourself, and your mother and I are proud of you." I waited for the punchline. There had to be a punchline. My mom jumped in. "We've been thinking a lot about family lately, and how important it is to stick together. And with you doing so well with your business, we thought maybe we could be more involved in your life again." "More involved how?" I asked. My dad cleared his throat. "Well, your mother and I are thinking about retirement in the next few years. I've had a good career, but law isn't what it used to be. We've had some financial setbacks. Market downturns, some bad investments. And we thought, since you're doing so well, and since family helps family, that maybe we could discuss some opportunities." It clicked. They didn't want a relationship. They wanted money. "What kind of opportunities?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Well," my dad said, "we could be investors in your company. I have business expertise, your mother has administrative experience. We could help you expand, and obviously we'd expect a return on our investment. Or, if you're not interested in that, we thought maybe you could help us with some of our expenses. Help your mother and I retire comfortably. It's what family does." I stood there, looking at these two people who'd given me life and then made me feel worthless for choosing my own path. These two people who'd blocked my number, excluded me from holidays, and made it clear I was an embarrassment. And now they wanted my money. "How much are we talking?" I asked. My dad smiled, probably thinking he'd won. "We'd need about $5,000 a month to supplement our retirement. Maybe more if medical expenses come up. And for an investment in your company, we'd want at least a 20% stake for a $100,000 investment." I did the math in my head. They wanted me to give them $60,000 a year, plus they wanted to buy their way into my company at a valuation that was absurdly low. My company was worth several million. A 20% stake for $100,000 was insulting. "Let me think about it," I said, and walked away. For the rest of the reception, I was swarmed by family members. My Aunt Linda asked if I could hire her son, my cousin Brett, who dropped out of college and was looking for direction. My Uncle Frank repeated his request for a job. My cousin Michelle asked if I could give her husband an investment opportunity. It was like sharks smelling blood in the water. The only person who didn't ask me for anything was Emma. She found me later and said, "They're all vultures." "I'm sorry." I left the wedding early. I drove home, sat on my back patio with a beer, and stared at my pool. I'd built this life from nothing. From a studio apartment with 2 roommates and a dream that everyone had mocked. I'd worked 16-hour days, missed holidays, sacrificed relationships, and pushed through moments where I questioned everything, all to build something I was proud of. And now the people who'd abandoned me wanted a piece of it? The next morning, I called a family meeting. I told my parents, through Emma, that I'd discuss their proposal if everyone could meet at a restaurant. They eagerly agreed. We met at a steakhouse in Scottsdale. My parents, Jason, Emma, and me. Everyone ordered expensive steaks and wine. I ordered water and a salad. After the small talk died down, my dad said, "So, have you thought about our proposal?" I nodded. "I have. And I have a counter proposal." Everyone leaned in. "I will not be giving you money. I will not be giving you a stake in my company. I will not be hiring family members who suddenly need jobs now that I'm successful." My dad's face fell. "Mike, that's not." I held up my hand. "I'm not done. You disowned me. You told me I was throwing my life away. You excluded me from family events for 8 years. You made me feel like I was worthless because I didn't follow your plan for my life. And now that I've succeeded despite you, not because of you, you want back in. Not because you love me or miss me, but because I have something you want." My mom started to cry. "That's not fair. We're your parents. You stopped being my parents when you blocked my number in 2015, I said. Emma is welcome in my life because she apologized sincerely and has put in effort to rebuild our relationship. Jason, you're on thin ice, but I appreciate the gesture of inviting me to your wedding. But the two of you. You don't get to come back now that it's convenient." My dad's face turned the same shade of red it had 10 years earlier. "You ungrateful." "I'm ungrateful," I interrupted. "I put myself through trade school. I worked at Home Depot. I lived in a studio apartment with 2 roommates. I built my business from scratch with no help from anyone in this family. And I'm ungrateful." Jason tried to play peacemaker. "Mike, come on, they're getting older. They made mistakes. Can't we all just move forward?" I turned to him. "Jason, how much do you make as a pediatrician?" He looked confused. "About $180,000 a year, why? And how much student loan debt do you have?" $390,000, but what does that? You're going to be paying that off for the next 20 years, I said. You make good money, but after taxes, loan payments, and cost of living, you're not exactly rolling in it. I make more than you, have zero debt, and own my own business. And yet 10 years ago, you told me I'd be fixing toilets while you were saving lives? How's that working out?" The table went silent. I stood up. "I'm not doing this to be cruel. I'm doing this to set boundaries. Emma, I'll see you for coffee next week. Jason, let's have lunch sometime and talk, just us. Mom, Dad, if you ever want to have a real relationship with me, one based on love and respect rather than money, my door is open. But if you want an ATM, you've got the wrong son." I paid for my salad and water, left a generous tip, and walked out. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, my parents have sent me a series of increasingly desperate texts and emails. They've apologized, then gotten angry. Then apologized again. They've tried to guilt me, saying I'm abandoning them in their old age. They've tried to manipulate me, saying they're going to lose their house if I don't help. They've even had other family members reach out on their behalf. I've blocked most of them. Emma tells me the family is divided. Some think I'm a heartless jerk who should help his parents. Others think my parents are getting what they deserve. There's apparently a lot of drama happening in the family group chat that I'm thankfully not part of. Jason called me last week. He apologized more sincerely than he had before. He admitted that he'd been jealous of my success and freedom while he's buried in debt. He asked if we could rebuild our relationship, and I said yes, but it'll take time. Emma is still my rock. She's decided not to retake the bar exam and is instead considering a career change, possibly into business. She's been asking me about entrepreneurship, and I've been happy to mentor her. As for my parents, I don't know what's going to happen. Part of me feels guilty. They're my parents, after all, and they're not getting any younger. But another part of me remembers that 22-year-old kid who was told he was throwing his life away, who was blocked and excluded and made to feel worthless. That kid deserved better. And the 32-year-old man I've become deserves respect, not opportunism. So, Reddit, am I the jerk here? Should I help my parents despite everything? Or am I justified in setting these boundaries? I genuinely don't know, and I'd appreciate any perspectives you can offer. Update, Edit added 3 days after original post. Holy crap, this blew up. I've read every comment, even the ones calling me names, and I want to address a few things. First, thank you to everyone who shared their own stories about family and trade careers. It helps to know I'm not alone in this experience. Second, a lot of people asked about the specifics of my parents' financial situation. I did some digging through Emma. Turns out my dad made some really bad investments in cryptocurrency in 2021 and lost about $300,000. They also refinanced their house multiple times to fund Jason's medical school and Emma's law school, and now they're underwater on the mortgage. They're not destitute, but they're definitely not as comfortable as they used to be. Third, I had a long conversation with a therapist this week. Yes, successful tradesmen can afford therapy and believe in mental health. She helped me work through some of my feelings about all this. Her take was that it's okay to set boundaries with family, and that reconciliation requires genuine remorse and changed behavior, not just apologies. Finally, my dad showed up at my office yesterday. Unannounced. He asked to talk, and I agreed to give him 15 minutes. He apologized. Really apologized. He said he'd been wrong, that he'd let pride and societal expectations cloud his judgment, and that he'd been a terrible father. He didn't ask for money. He just said he wanted a chance to know me again. I told him I'd think about it. And I am. Family is complicated. Money makes it more complicated. But maybe, just maybe, there's a path forward that doesn't involve me being an ATM or a doormat.